Captain, we have a proximity alert with the planet Geekery. We are approaching collision.
Quicks, get somebody on the comms, enter in the security code.
257.
Security code accepted.
Hello, devoted geeks, and welcome to episode 5 of Comm Talk, the podcast extension of Geek Devotions, the YouTube show from a couple of devoted geeks that are devoted to letting people know that they are loved. I'm Celeste, and to my right here is...
Dallas!
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and it's going to be awesome. But we want you guys to do us a favor. And as you listen to this podcast, please interact with us. Send us your tweets or hit us up on Facebook at Geek Devotions. We're also on Instagram. And give us some feedback on what you're hearing today. We want to make sure this isn't just a one-sided conversation, but we want you guys involved. Also, make sure you stick around to the end of our show to hear who is our devoted Geek of the Week. And also how you yourself can become next week's devoted Geek of the Week.
Now, I want to throw this out there before we go any further. There will not be spoilers from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen the movie. Went last night with a group of friends, all ladies. It was quite nice. But Dallas has not seen the movie, and so I don't want to spoil it for him or you.
Yes, and I appreciate that greatly. And kind of what we're doing today, as far as talking about Wonder Woman, is we're looking at the comics, specifically the Rebirth section of the comics, which just happened this last year, which, for those of you listening, Rebirth was a massive event that DC Comics has done, where they kind of rebooted the series or the universe, if you will.
It's really the universe because everybody had a rebirth.
Right. But it wasn't just a rebirth or a reboot necessarily. It was kind of taking things back to the basics, trying to return to the things that we loved, the things that we cared about with the comics and the characters, because a lot of people, with New 52 didn't like the direction they went with some things. Yeah. There was a lot of understanding of who the characters really were.
Yeah.
And their origins that we lost. And so Rebirth was supposed to kind of fix all that.
And my understanding is there was quite a few things that they disagreed with on some of the characters. Now, Wonder Woman, that's actually kind of where I came into the comics.
Rebirth or New 52?
New 52.
Okay.
Because of Hoopla.
Right.
Hoopla, which is an extension of the library where you can download music, movies, comics, graphic novels, mostly graphic novels.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing as short as a comic. They had all 5 of the graphic novels that were from the original run of New 52 Wonder Woman.
Right.
So I went through and read all of that. And so the way it kind of started, it's like you know what's going on. You know where she is, why she's somewhere. And they're assuming you know things about her. And I'm going, well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. And so I'm having to research and look. And I've run into the same thing in Rebirth, because Rebirth is really where I started reading things on actual books.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not just checking out graphic novels from the library on Hoopla, but actually sitting down with a book that I bought.
Right. And so, now with that, just because I read through a lot of the New 52 as they were coming out, you got a lot of the backstory with some of the extra stuff that had come out. You had a couple of annuals and everything. But now specifically, what we're doing today is we're taking from your knowledge of the comic books.
Yes. Again, my knowledge is very limited.
But we're going to try to give people kind of a source of what they need to know going into the movie. The just came out, and also just some of your thoughts on what's happening in Rebirth right now.
Right.
Because that's important to know.
Well, I would say that you should at least read through the first 5 books of the New 52. Like, not the actual comics, but the first 5 graphic novels.
That's a lot of reading.
It is, but it's not at the same time, because they each embody one story, so it's like reading a short-ish book. And again, I read a lot, and I read quickly.
Right.
So for me, I was done in a graphic novel in maybe a day and a half.
I gotcha.
So for me, it was not terribly long. And so if you don't watch this, you're not going to be missing anything. But there was a couple nods. They very much based the movie on some of the New 52 stuff, which now that I've caught up, because up until, about 15 minutes ago, I was not completely caught up on all my Rebirth stuff. I had the books, I just haven't had time to sit down and read them.
Right.
So they've heavily based it on the Rebirth.
Okay, well you just, Rebirth or New 52? Because you said New 52 a minute ago.
Both.
Both, okay.
There are aspects that they're pulling in from New 52, and there are aspects they're pulling in from Rebirth.
Okay.
Rebirth is a little bit different, because they've modernized everything. Mm-hmm. And so, like, Etta Candy, instead of being a pudgy British woman, which is what she is in the movie,
right,
or a pudgy American woman, which is what she was in the Linda Carter show, is a pretty intense black lady who is military, and she is kicking butts and taking names.
Wow. Okay.
So just to kind of give you the difference, and honestly, in the 52, I didn't even see her.
Right. Now, I feel like we need to explain to those of you guys who are listening, maybe you're not a comic book reader, and we're throwing out terms of Rebirth and 52. New 52 was, like we said earlier, was kind of a revamp or relaunch DC Comics back in 2011. And the reason why it was called New 52 is because there was only 52 books in DC Comics at the time of the launching.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. There was only 52 across the board. Now, that's a lot of comics, but that's what that was. And then, like we said later, Rebirth is a massive event that's taking place that we're just now getting revelation about what's happening, and as far as why things have changed and what's shifting. It's really quite interesting.
Right.
Haven't had a chance to read all of it because they're in it's taking place in Batman and Flash.
Yeah.
Which I can't read those right now because they're at the comic book shop. So,
oops.
All right. So cool. All right. So you said that there's some differences between everything.
Yeah. It's kind of like they took enough from Rebirth to where everything makes sense, but they still held true to some of the focuses of 52.
Okay. Sweet. Now, let's look at the description of the movie that's coming out. It says, before she was Wonder Woman, she was Diana, Princess of the Amazons, trained warrior. When a pilot crashes and tells of conflict in the outside world, she leaves home to fight a war to end all wars, discovering her full powers and true destiny. And so it sounds very exciting. The previews look great.
Yes.
I mean, the music, I mean, it's epic.
Yeah,
but
it is.
What from there, like, where are you seeing direct correlations between the new movie and the comic book, specifically with the most recent? Because, let's say that somebody's like, you know what, I don't want to go back to 2010 and read all that. And they're like you, because really you started really reading with the Rebirth stuff.
Well, and in all honesty, because we knew Rebirth was coming up, because DC announced the mess out of it.
Yeah, they did.
We knew that, they were dropping their prices, so we'd be able to afford for me to get books and you to have books. So I only collect Wonder Woman. Dallas has a couple, but he has scaled it down just because, we have a budget. So I really read those in preparation for Rebirth because I wanted a general knowledge of something other than Linda Carter.
Right. So, with that in mind, all that stuff, what in Rebirth? If someone comes in like, I'm reading Rebirth because they can just jump into Rebirth. What are the direct correlations that you saw between the movie and Rebirth Wonder Woman?
I can't share that.
Oh, really? It's that much spoilers, huh?
Every correlation, unless you have already read the book, is a spoiler. I will say this, they start everything off. Okay, let me back up. Rebirth is about the way that they're working Wonder Woman specifically, is they're going back and they're sifting through everything.
No, what do you mean?
What's true, what's not. There's a lot of different lore behind Wonder Woman.
Okay.
In some of them, she was a baby that Hippolyta had created out of clay and prayed to Zeus to bring to life.
Mm-hmm.
In another one, she is Hippolyta and Zeus's daughter.
Oh, really?
Like, and Athena was going after them, not because it wasn't her children. Basically, she was going after the baby mama and the babies.
Right.
There's just several different things because Wonder Woman has been going for 75 years.
Yeah.
So some of the backstory has gotten muddled with everything. So what they did is with Rebirth, they're coming in and they had a line called The Lies.
Mm-hmm.
And that was going through everything that had been said. And actually the first book in that line was quite tragic.
Really?
Well, you kind of feel for her because she, in New 52,
Mm-hmm.
she kills Ares.
Oh, really?
Ares is the god of war. So when you kill the god of war, you become the god of war because there has to be somebody to fill that spot in this mythos.
Mm-hmm.
So she became the god of war, and apparently, now I stopped reading it. That's how the 5 books that I read ended.
Right.
So I stopped reading after that because there really wasn't a lot. And I was told that the other authors were not as good as the original.
Oh, really?
By our friend at the comic book shop.
Randy?
Yeah, Randy
Okay.
told me not to bother with it.
Really? Okay, I didn't know he had said that.
Yeah, I was looking at him because I couldn't, for the longest time, Hoopla didn't have the 5th book.
Right.
So I was contemplating buying it just so I could read it. And so he was like, okay, so yes, finish this out. With this one, past that, you really don't need to read.
Okay.
So
That's cool. Now, for those of you who don't know, Randy is, he's one of the guys at Excalibur Comics, which is our local comic shop that we go to often. It's over on 70th Street here in Shreveport. And, but he's also part of a YouTube show, called Excalibur CCG TV.
yes.
Which, it's a weekly episode that talks about all the stuff coming out. It's a great show. And they also have their own podcast that comes out at the same time. Yeah. It's basically audio from the show.
Okay.
But it's on iTunes and Stitcher and all that stuff too.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
So he told me not to bother with reading the rest of it, especially with Rebirth coming. And I believe at the time he knew our plans.
Mm-hmm.
That we were going to be I was going to be able to start getting into the books. And so with that, it ended with her having killed Ares and her becoming the goddess of war. So the first book of Rebirth is so sad because she's realized that basically she's having an identity crisis.
Right.
She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know, is she the goddess of war? Is she the princess of Theramaskia? Is she the daughter of Zeus? Is she the baby made of clay? Like, it's just all these things are coming into play, and it ends before you get any resolution to that. So, because it goes over several books, but at the time I'm going, but I want more! So it's been an adjustment getting used to reading just 1 or 2 bits of the story rather than the story in its entirety.
Right. Well, overall, with the Rebirth books, how do you feel about them? Do you like what's happening in the story? Do you not like what's happening? Do you feel like it's a good jumping on point for people, or?
I do think it is a good jumping on point, but I will say this, if you have no previous knowledge of the books, there will be some things that confuse you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now I just caught up, again, I read about, 4 or 5 issues in one day, so that we could catch up and talk about this podcast. Or talk to this podcast, whatever you want to call it. And there was a character, and I'm going, who is this? He was somebody that everyone seemed to know, and I may be wrong. I'm going to have to research him later.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was a character that she met in the New 52 books.
Really?
So if you don't mind being a little confused, because there's going to be characters that are like her longtime villains or her longtime friends or backstories you just don't know.
Right.
That it's like, oh, everybody knows this. No, DC, not everybody knows this. Then yes, Rebirth is a great jumping on point because, again, they're bringing everything into one canon storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's definitely a good thing. Just be prepared to be a little confused at times.
Oh, really?
So.
All right. Well, cool beans. Cool beans. Well, is there anything out of the books that you could pull out that like it's really touched you or really meant to you? Because that's that's one of the things that we like to do with our fandoms is we find things that we connect to. We've talked before. If there's not really something that we connect to, we don't feel the need to continue on. So what in the books or even within the mythos of Wonder Woman or with the movie that you connected with that really meant something to you?
As far as the movie, I would say probably just how very naive she is.
Really?
She is very naive.
Mm-hmm.
She comes into this and she's expecting to be able to change the world,
mm-hmm.
which is great. And you kind of slowly watch her lose it.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that they said in the movie, and it's kind of a spoiler, but it's not highly plot related because everyone knows this is set in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
She said something to the effect of the spoils of war. I don't remember her exact line.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve looks at her and goes, "The major casualty of war is innocence."
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, Wonder Woman as a whole, I just like the fact that she's a woman who knows how to handle her own business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she doesn't trash men.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't disregard them.
Right.
But she does not rely on them.
Right.
And I feel like that's something that's lacking. Either women are completely reliant on men or feel like they have to have a man in their life. They have to do the normal thing,
mm-hmm.
or they completely push him away and push him down.
Right.
And there is a happy medium.
Sure. And that is something that's missing kind of in society today. I've seen myself is the lack of balance. So you do have this one way or another. And for me, just being outside looking at that in women's culture, but not just them, but everywhere, it's like one extreme seems to be bashing the other one. You have those that go way their way where it's like, super anti-man, I don't need a man at all. And they're bashing women who are like, look, I just want a guy to take care of me. Which is fine if that's what you want. And then at the same time, you have ladies who are super like, stay-at-home moms who like, they if they don't have a man in their life, they're not going to be able to function type of mentality. And they're bashing men, or
mm-hmm.
women rather, on the other end who are like super independent.
Yeah.
And so, and you and I have experienced that. We've seen the people who, because you and I, we try to be very middle of the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Very level-headed. And we've experienced even from both sides of the line.
Exactly. And it's kind of like, while I love you,
mm-hmm.
I know that if God forbid, something were to happen, I
mm-hmm.
could survive without you.
Sure.
It would be okay.
Yeah, eventually.
Like, and when I say okay, I mean the bills would be paid and I would have a place to live.
Mm-hmm.
Like, physically, I would be okay. Emotionally, I'd be a wreck. But physically, I would be okay. Like, and if this horrible thing that is never going to happen
right.
happened after we had children,
mm-hmm.
the children would be okay.
Right.
Like, they would be provided for. It would be fine.
Right.
And I don't see that in a lot of women now because either they're so focused on their careers or they don't want to work at all. I'm like, you have to know how to do things.
Right.
So, that's my personal rant.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. Well, you got anything else you want to say, Celeste, about Wonder Woman, about the books, or about the movie, or what people need to do to be ready for the movie?
When do you want to go see it? That's my question because we're going again.
We're going again. All right. We'll find out. I'm looking forward to it. I like the stuff. I'm a fan of the Trinity, the DC Trinity, obviously.
Yes, I actually want to read those at some point.
Oh, I have the original Trinity series in our office.
Yes.
So I'll pull those out for you.
Okay.
We have a library of comic books.
Yes, we do.
Between the two of us. So, all right. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Comm Talk. Before we close this out, we want to give a special congratulations to our devoted Geek of the Week, Tyler Gerfer, who is a Chi Alpha missionary at ULM here in Louisiana. And Tyler, if you're listening to this, you are our Devoted Geek of the Week because you have recommended people to our show and to our YouTube channel and all that stuff. And they have come and found us. One guy just last week commented on, I think, our Facebook page.
I believe it was the Facebook page.
Yeah, on the Facebook page. And he goes, hey, I love what you guys are doing. Tyler Gerfer sent me to you guys. And, he was just really excited about seeing what we were doing. And so because of that, Tyler, because we appreciate people who help us to grow this ministry. And you and I've talked to Tyler a few times over the last couple of years. Man, you are our Devoted Geek of the Week. And as of this podcast right now, when this goes live, you should be receiving in your mailbox, in your Facebook mailbox, a little Devoted Geek of the Week thing. And we'll post your picture up on our Instagram and Facebook later today, Sunday.
Yay! Because it's not Sunday when we're recording this.
Right. So Celeste,
we get confused.
We do. So how do people become our Devoted Geek of the Week?
They become our Devoted Geek of the Week by interacting with us. Talk to us.
Yeah.
Check us out.
Sure.
Comment on our Facebook, on our Instagram, on our YouTube. Please comment on our YouTube. Just generally letting us know. Let us know what you think about this podcast.
Yeah.
Again, I've said this before, but the podcast thing is a little weird to me because there's no real way to know if anybody actually likes what we're doing. It's just out there.
Yeah.
It's chilling.
So, guys, communicate with us. Let us know what's going on. Also, pretty soon, we'll be announcing it on our Facebook page. We're going to have an email that we'll be sending out to people. We're looking at maybe twice a month. It won't be we're not going to spam you.
Oh no, because we don't like spam,
right? And but it's going to be basically just kind of a regular update of that's happening.
Spam. Sorry.
Welcome to our life.
This really is just normal conversation for us guys.
So, but we're not going to spam you guys, but basically about twice a month, maybe. Will just be an update about what's happening in Geek Devotions. There will be links to our episodes, to our Comm Talk episodes, maybe an article or two. Those, if you don't know, on our Instagram, with each one, we try to put out a mini devotion image with looks like a paragraph and image that goes together.
Yeah.
On our Instagram to go with each episode that comes out on YouTube. And so what we'll be doing is we'll include those in there. And kind of as things grow, that's what's happening. Well, you guys will probably, those of you who joined the email, will probably be some of the first to hear new things about happening with Geek Devotions.
And potentially in our lives as well, just because.
Exactly. So, but that's going to be happening. So keep an eye out for that. If you're not following our social media, please do. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And I think that's it. So it's at Geek Devotions. You can find us real easily. And check that out. And I think that's all. Oh, one last thing I want to say before we close everything out. And that is today, Saturday is when we're recording this. I jumped onto a Google Hangout with our friends over at Retro Rewind Podcast. Vibe! Francisco. They're doing a really cool thing this summer where they're kind of like a summer movie club. And today they're talking about Last Action Hero.
Yes.
And so what they're doing is they're finding movies that are on Crackle and other places for free. So everyone can watch it, talk about some of the spiritual implications. And I jumped on there, not realizing what I was doing really.
Because we were in the middle of grilling.
We were. I thought I was jumping on just to join the conversation, just to hear the conversation. I realized I clicked the wrong link and I was in the Google Hangout live.
Oh, no. Yeah, we do this thing, maybe once every 6 months, where we mass grill.
Yeah.
We do burgers and hot dogs, because if you grill or smoke burgers and hot dogs and throw them in the freezer, they are good for forever.
Not quite forever, but quite a while.
Forever. They taste amazing. You can stick them in the microwave and it tastes like it came off the grill. Right. Blows my mind. So that's what we were doing today.
Yeah, and so I jumped on and actually had a really great conversation with our friends over there at Retro Rewind Podcast. So I want to encourage you guys, find their YouTube channel, Retro Rewind Podcast, because I think the video will be on there later. But beyond that, check out their their podcast. It's over on Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, all that. It's a really great podcast. I really enjoy listening to them. And they're really big about crowd involvement too. So check them out. I think that is finally it, Celeste.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Comm Talk today. If you have loved this episode, head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Until next Sunday, stay devoted.
Peace and love!